Now, Australia's billion-dollar cruise industry has been on hold for almost 2 years. International ships were banned from entering the country back in March 2020 after the Ruby Princess coronavirus outbreak that you'll remember resulted in more than 600 infections and 28 deaths after it docked in Sydney Harbour. The industry still has no idea when they'll be back on the water. They're pleading for billions of dollars in assistance now. Let's bring in Joel Katz of Cruise Lines Australia. Thanks for joining us, Joel. What does the industry need apart from being allowed to operate again?
Good afternoon. Good to be with you. Well, really, we're saying to the government at both the Commonwealth and the state and territory levels, we need a plan. Australia is now the only country in the world where there is no pathway forward. 86 countries around the world have allowed cruising to restart. More than 7 million people have cruised successfully. So we're saying with the announcement this week that international borders are reopening, we need a pathway forward for cruise here.
Well, we put your dilemma to the Tourism Minister on the program last night. Here's what Dan Tehan had to say.
We need to work with states and territories around ports and the requirements we put in place there. And I've been talking with my state and territory counterparts and we want to make sure that we can resume cruise. So my hope would be over the coming weeks and months, we will be able to resume cruising as well.
Gee, the COVID situation's changed a lot. Does that give you any hope? Are they moving quickly enough?
Well, today the New South Wales Premier said that he's keen to see cruising restart, and he needs to work with the federal government. So we have the federal government saying they need to work with the states. We have the states saying they need to work with the federal government. So what the 18,000 Australians who rely on the cruise industry for their livelihoods want is for all levels of government to work together and solve this problem.
Get your act together. Now, it's not rocket science, right? We've all been through this so many times. I would have thought if you have a vaccine, people on the cruises need to be double jabbed. And if they're getting off at an Australian port, maybe you could demand they do a rat test before they get off. I mean, anything more than that would be ridiculous, wouldn't it?
Well, in the first instance, we were only talking about domestic cruising. Until this week, we didn't have international tourism. So we were saying to the government, let's start domestic cruising first. Let Australians who can already fly and travel around the country cruise between those same ports. So, from the early days of the pandemic, the industry was the first to commit to 100% testing. Vaccinations are obviously a key part of our protocols. And then all the public health measures that you'd expect to see on our ships are in place and are working successfully in other parts of the world.
Good on you, Joel. Thanks for joining us. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Joel Katz there, who's with the cruising industry in this part of the world. We're going to continue to push. We want these we said right at the start, governments throw on all these restrictions. They do it in an instant. But it's very hard to get them lifted, and they need to be lifted for so many reasons, for so many people's livelihoods.